Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everybody. Let's do a tech check. Can you see and hear me? All right, perfect. That's wonderful. I love when it works the first time around. How are you doing? What's alive for you today? I just did a little meditation before I came on, and I'm feeling very relaxed. Very relaxed. um, Heading home in the car. How are things with you? Okay, well, be safe if you're driving. Hopefully, this won't be too distracting. Um, and yeah, but thanks for making time to listen, even in the middle of a car ride. That's pretty cool. Um, yeah, I have been very productive, and I seem to be getting over the COVID. It's been like a very long experience of COVID. This is the second month. And I'm just beginning to be able to do physical workouts again. So that has been wonderful to actually be feeling in my body again. So that feels really nice. Hey, Christine. Good to see you. Hey, Jackie. Everyone else, I can't see your icons. Hello. All right. Good to see you all. Hey, Stacy. All right. So, for those of you coming in, I would love, we're not going to start quite yet, but I will introduce a little bit of the topic, a little bit. Then I'll go over it in much more depth as folks are winding in and arriving fully. So the basic idea behind today is that we're going to explore how to overcome people pleasing from the perspective of shifting from strategy to connection. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail about what this means. But the basic idea is that for many of us who people please, or we don't have very strong sense of our own boundaries or clarity around our own boundaries, it's typically almost always simply because we're prioritizing doing something before connecting. It's very simple. And if we can make the shift from focusing on connection first, self-connection and other connection, before moving to strategy very quickly, then people-pleasing will very often dissolve. We will just stop. The urge will still come up. We'll still have the thought. We'll still, have all this arise. But we use those opportunities as moments to bring mindfulness and self-connection. So it's like a real world practice, in the moment practice, and in the moment meditation, that anytime we begin to notice that we are going to say yes, or maybe we say yes and we catch ourselves, right? We can use these moments to turn this habit around. And all we really have to do to turn it around is to remind ourselves to connect in these moments and focus on prioritizing connection over and above just doing a thing. And the main insight around this comes from recognizing that when we have rushed into strategies before, either saying yes inwardly to something, an inward demand that we're saying yes to, or when we say yes to other people too quickly, it often can backfire. So that's kind of the underlying idea here. Hi, Joyce. Hi, Grace. Good to see you both. Blessings. So this is something that I learned from NVC, nonviolent communication, compassionate communication. They make a really phenomenal and for me life-changing distinction between connection requests and strategy requests, and also between requests and demands. So just to review these concepts, a demand is a request. Everything is a request. There's no real objective reality to a demand, but a demand is a request that we don't experience any openness to say no to. So if someone is making a demand, that means that they are not open to no. We may say no anyway, but that would bring up a response that they were avoiding in some way. They were hoping to not experience that response inside of them. We can also make demands unintentionally. And everyone makes demands unintentionally. It's okay. But a demand is essentially when we make a request and we're very attached to the outcome. And so we don't experience a lot of spaciousness around hearing no. And compulsions can be thought of this way. Addictions can be thought of as demands. We're basically making requests, but we're not open to no. So everything can be looked at through this lens of requests and demands and connection requests and strategy requests. So really awesome distinctions to have in your mind and can really help you shift your awareness and your consciousness into connection and into non-attachment and more spaciousness. So what's the difference then between a strategy request and a connection request? A strategy request is a request. It's a simple thing like, hey, do you want to go to dinner on Tuesday? Hey, do you want to go for a walk? Hey, do you want to watch a movie? These are specific strategies. They're very specific things, and they're specific ways to meet our needs. So from asking someone to dinner, I might have needs around companionship and friendship, closeness, whatever it may be, and I'm attempting to meet those needs with the strategy. A connection request, on the other hand, is a request where the primary need that you're trying to meet is either self-connection or connection to the other person. So that's the main need that you're trying to meet, and everything else becomes in service to connection. We're trying to put connection over and above whether someone actually wants to go to dinner or not, whether they say yes or not. A connection request is going to say something like, hey, I'd really like to go to dinner with a friend this coming week. Would you like to go out somewhere? What comes up for you around the thought of going out to dinner? You're purely interested in like what arises for the other person in relation to something, and you're focusing on the connection. So you're not even like jumping to the point where you would even ask a person to dinner yet. You would just say, how does that sound? Is there something else you'd rather do? What's exciting for you lately? Right? You're focusing on the connection instead of the strategy. You can have the strategy in mind, but you're really focusing as to, is the person excited about this? Am I excited about this? Is this nourishing to me? Is it nourishing to them? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to kind of find that zone of harmony. You're trying to find the area where there is a compatibility and an overlap, and that's where there's the mutual yes, right? The area of the mutual yes, the harmony zone, is where you can just live there and things will tend to be good. But we often run into problems when it's a half-hearted yes. Someone is a yes, another person is a no. Another person is a yes, but they're like very reluctant, or they're saying it resentfully. Or someone says no out of rebellion and resentment instead of maybe they actually do want to do it, but they say no because they don't trust the quality of the connection between you two. So there's a lot of ways that this goes haywire very often in everyday experience. And one of the things that I always loved about nonviolent communication and that I still love about it is that it is a practice that you literally, it's a spiritual practice that you literally live moment to moment in your life. It's like living your life from a place of deeper self-connection, authenticity, integrity. It's very powerful as a practice. So you may remember that I did a workshop on non-compartmentalization a while back, probably last year, I think. And compartmentalization is when our spiritual practice, like, we're on the yoga mat or we're on the meditation mat, we have an incredible experience. And then later in the day, we're like so unregulated that we're like screaming at something, or we're like people pleasing, or we're eating, indulging in way more food than we would want. We're eating things that we don't want. We're doing all sorts of things that are out of integrity. And it's like, hold on, like, what's going on there, right? And just because we're meditating or we're doing yoga doesn't mean that we're integrating that into the rest of our lives. It may give us a really powerful moment or a very powerful state of being in alignment. It's really important to nurture that. At the same time, we don't want to compartmentalize our spiritual practice so that we're really connected in one little small area of our life, but rather that we want that to exude and integrate into all the other aspects of our life over time. It takes time, right? It's not going to happen instantaneously. Sometimes there's deeper healing that needs to happen. So important to have compassion for ourselves on the journey as we do this. But that's the basic idea. So that's what we're going to explore today. And I have two things planned. I have a regular workshop where we'll do some journaling, have a little journaling thing here. We'll do a little journaling. I also am going to do something new here. I'm going to do a meditation in the new meditation style that I've been doing on YouTube. And I'm going to try and do one live, and hopefully it comes out really good and I can post it on YouTube with a little bit of editing. So that would be cool. And also I can post it here as well with a little bit of editing. I don't suppose I'll get it exactly perfect the first time I do it, but this is what I'm going to try this time. We'll see how it goes. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some new meditations that I put out that I would love to let you know about, so you can check them out, both free ones and premium ones, and they're also on YouTube as well, or they will be if they're not yet. So that's the agenda for today. That's the intention. Hey, Jen, and hello everyone else coming in. Would love to hear, just as a little piece of feedback from me, how does that sound? Does that sound exciting? Does that sound cool? You liking the new flow? I mean, of course, you don't know yet because it hasn't happened yet, but what are you feeling? Okay, a little of excitement. That's cool. I dig it. So, all right. Thank you, Grace. New way to meditate sounds good. It'll be similar to what I've done before. It just has this, now I've got like this cool little background here. When we go into meditation mode, we'll have like a little cool meditation background there. And that can kind of indicate that we're in meditation mode. So that's another thing that I'm trying to do, is just have it be clearer when we're just chatting and we're having conversation and I'm answering questions, versus like journal time. Like, here we go. We're going to do some journal time, right? And then, so I'm working on my streaming and trying to make it more engaging and more clear. So every day improving it a little bit, every day just improving a little bit. So hopefully, yeah, so that's the idea. And I've got as usual, I have 4,000 ideas, and I'm implementing them little bit by little bit. And today I've wanted for like the past 4 months to publish another course on Insight Timer on core needs. It's literally been sitting there. I need to change 2 things that are going to take me 15 minutes and just re-upload it. It's really not going to take time. I just haven't done it. So I'm making a very strong intention to actually finish this and upload it, because it's a full course on this. You may remember it from last year. We recorded it last year, and it's kind of been sitting there. So I am also going to publish that as well. And so lots of stuff, cool stuff in the works for this coming year. All right. So with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about this shift. We talked a little bit about connection requests and strategy requests. Let's go into a little more detail about what that is. So a strategy request is anything that has like a person, place, time, or thing attached to it. So instead of like, I want to eat, like eating would be a thing. Eating would be a verb, right? So that's a very particular strategy. I want to eat with you at 12 o'clock, right? That's a very specific strategy. At my favorite restaurant or whatever, right? So every time we add a who, a what, a when, a where, and what verb we're doing, what action we're doing, those are all strategies. That's all the strategy level. And it's just very important to realize that anytime we mention a specific thing with a specific time, place, person, or event or action, we're making a strategy request. And what we can do is we can take a step back. If we know now, if you have let me just say, if you have a relationship of trust with someone, you may be able to make a strategy request pretty quickly without spending a lot of time connecting, because you already have a basis of that trust and an underlying reservoir of connection between you in this relationship. So I'm not suggesting at all that you need to do this all the time. So in my teaching, it's very important to always put things in a context of like, when is this a good thing to do? When is it maybe a little bit overkill? So connection requests are primarily useful if you have struggled with people pleasing, or struggled with boundaries, or struggled with connecting with saying yes when you really mean yes, and saying no when you really don't want to do something, and going from that space. In those contexts specifically, this is when shifting to connection is going to be incredibly empowering and healing. And the more you do this, the more you actually make that shift into prioritizing connection, the easier it's going to get. Because the people-pleasing tendency inside of us, there's a little bit of, if anyone is struggling with that, it's a sense of almost like anxiety. It's an inner demand, right? It's like an inner demand. We don't feel open ourselves to saying no. So when someone makes a request of us, we're like overeager. We're like, oh my gosh, yes, please. Yes, I'll do this, right? We haven't even taken a moment to self-connect whether it would work for us, because our brain has an association that contributing to other people is going to make them like us. And doing this thing or being something inauthentic or saying something that maybe is a little bit more exaggerated than we would otherwise say, our brain has mixed these things up and confused them with receiving genuine love and genuine care and genuine authentic contribution from the other person. So in these contexts where we may be a little bit confused still, which for many of us is almost all of us, and depending on the context, this is a very human thing. Some of us have it a little bit harder than others, and some of us have it harder than others in different areas, right? So for me, in most areas of my life, I'm pretty good with this. When it comes to intimate relationships, I'm an absolute toddler spiritually when it comes to this stuff. And when it comes to some of my closest friends, I can also do this as well. So, which is weird, right? Because if I'm so close with them, I would feel comfortable enough to be totally authentic. But it's rarer that happens for me than is more common. So, let's all be human here. It's okay. I openly admit to not being fully integrated in this area of my life either. And it's okay. Like, hey, we're all on the journey. It's okay. That's something that's very precious to me, is like, I don't want to play guru. Like, I've figured it all out and like I'm here and I've totally doing this in all areas of my life all the time. Like, I've never met anyone who does that, and I don't do it myself either. So let's give ourselves a little bit of a break. Let's be compassionate with our journey and understand that this isn't about getting to some ultimate endpoint when you finally got it all together. That's not what it's about. That's gonna kill the enjoyment of the journey. And even beyond a journey, let's go beyond the journey metaphor. It's just more like music. And this is a dance, and we're just dancing our life and we're doing our thing, and let's enjoy it while we're here. While the music is playing, let's just enjoy. So I want to put all this in the mindset of personal growth and healing as a form of joyful expression, as a form of creative self-expression, as a form of joyful healing and play. So that perspective is much more exciting to me than one that feels like, well, I have to heal so that people finally love me and can deal with the mess that I am, which I feel is like a lot of what's underneath a lot of personal growth and spiritual development stuff is like, let me just go on the meditation cushion for long enough so that I'm tolerable and so that people will like me and want to be around me. And it's like, okay, like, let's notice that if that's happening for us, let's notice that. And it's not really about that. It's if anyone has that thought that arise, it's okay. We can laugh at it. It's totally fine. Just notice the thought it's coming up. Okay. Or maybe it's even like dealing with the craziness of quote unquote, the craziness of other people, and we're trying to deal with that too. So whether it's others that are causing or stimulating stress inside, or whether it's our own self-judgments that are causing the stress inside, I'm really hoping that we can let go of the enemy images of others and the enemy images of ourselves and just focus on reaching a place of connection and alignment so that we can associate with other people that are really aligned with us and don't have a draining effect on us. And at the same time, that we feel that we can be fully ourselves without fear of draining others as well. It goes both ways. And when you do one, it's very important to also practice the other. So they're very compatible practices in that respect. So hopefully that makes sense. Does anyone have any comments or questions before we start playing with some of the workshop material? And I'll wait for you to type and I'll see if anyone says anything. But the main thing here that I'll say is that there's a major shift in the intentionality that happens when you're doing this practice, which is that we learn to want to say, we want other people's yes and no to come from genuine connection to what's true for them more than getting the yes or the no from them. So in the field of persuasion, right? This is not persuasion. This is like the opposite of persuasion. So persuasion is I have an outcome in mind and I'm trying to persuade someone else to say yes to that, right? That's what persuasion is. We rightfully perceive that as manipulative because it overrides genuine willingness. Now, there are more aligned ways to persuade someone that integrate what I'm talking about. But then it's weird to call it persuasion. It's more like a discovery process of finding alignment, and you're just sharing information and you're going from there. I call that dialogue. I don't call that persuasion. Because in order to move from persuasion to connection, even if you just like want to go out somewhere or you want to hang out or you want to watch a movie or whatever, you don't want to watch the movie that you want to watch. You want to watch the movie that everyone wants to watch, or you do want to watch the movie that you want to watch, and then you're not open to watching a movie with other people, right? You can be in both places, right? If you go inside and you notice that the truth inside of you is, you know what? I really want to watch this movie today. I'm like so excited about this movie. Like, this is what I want to do. And I'm not open at this time to doing something else. Then you can share that. And if other people want to do that with you, then they can join you in that. You could say, I only want you to join if you would enjoy also watching this movie with me. That's the shift in the intentionality. I don't want you to watch this movie because I want to watch this movie. This is my truth. I'm really excited about this. I want to watch this movie. I only want you to join me if you are also enthusiastic about watching it. If you're not, and you say yes, that's actually going to not feel good to me. So I only want you to say yes if you genuinely feel excited about it as well. That's a different universe for me than, here's the movie I want to watch. Let me persuade you why you should want to watch it as well. Can you feel the difference between those worlds? It's a totally different world to me. The intentionality and where our focus is placed and what needs are active inside of us are totally different. And so even though to the outside world of things and actual things happening, it can just look like we're watching a movie, inwardly, it is an entirely different universe of intentionality. And that shift, making that shift as often as possible in our life, is for me the road to overcoming people pleasing, having healthy boundaries that are aligned with your core needs, core values, and core gifts, and then living a life that is more deeply expressive of your deepest self and your most beautiful gifts, giving your most beautiful gifts to the world. So this is how those all come together, and it's why they're so important. So hopefully that makes sense. And, this applies to the fixer archetype or the pleaser archetype, as well as the convincing. So we talked about persuasion. Persuasion is when we're trying to convince someone else, but the same exact thing happens with fixing and trying to, quote unquote, make others happy, or this kind of thing. Whenever we're trying to, quote unquote, fix another person, it's actually the same kind of thing going on, in the sense of, I've already got an outcome in my head that I think is the right one. I've got this outcome in my head. This is what would look good for this person, right? And I'm not even saying that this is wrong. I'm not in principle against some like extremely obvious cases of this, where if someone is like severely addicted to a substance, then I think it's pretty clear that there are some clear outcomes that are better than others in this scenario, right? It might be better to have this person help this person get support, right? There are clear examples where you actually do know what's better for a person. I'm not of the belief that we need to play this game where we have no idea what's good for other people or ourselves. I just think that we can go a little overboard, and if we let that get out of control, then we can mistake what's good for other people and what's good for ourselves very often, right? So it's a tightrope we have to walk on. And two things can be true. It can be true that in some situations, it's very clear that something is not good for another person. We don't need to lie to ourselves and be like, well, I guess drugs are good for them and they can just be addicted to cocaine and have no freedom and no health and no whatever and die 40 years earlier. Like, no, let's not play that subjective game of that there's no like objective morality. That's not, I don't think that's a good road to go down. At the same time, we also, in areas that are less obvious, which is most things in life, are not that obvious, then it does behoove us to prioritize connection over the idea that we might know what's best for another person. And so all this to say that, we've all experienced that someone thought that they knew what was best for us. And we go inside and we're like, that doesn't resonate at all. Like, you don't really know what you're talking about, right? So we don't want to be that person for other people either. So all this to say, we have to walk this fine balance. And the way we can do that is we can just own what we think, right? We can just own, like, it's hard for me to imagine that doing, being addicted to this substance is healthy for you. And I'm concerned for your well-being. I'm curious where you are around it. Now, here's the other thing, right? Is that when you're focusing on connecting with the other person in an authentic, safe, loving, compassionate space, you don't need force or fixing or whatever. Like, they will often find their own internal reservoir of wanting well-being inside of themselves. So even the case that I brought up of this person is addicted to a substance, which is a tragic thing that a lot of people struggle with, it's not about necessarily forcing them to do anything or persuading them or fixing them. It might be just staying grounded in yourself completely. You're staying over here in you, and you're saying and sharing and focusing on connecting around what's happening inside of you and what's happening inside of the other person. You give them space to share and explore that as well. And before any strategies, but again, there are some circumstances where you may want to go to a quick strategy in that kind of situation. But I'm just trying to give you the cases, the edge cases and the exceptions, so you can understand that I'm not saying that this is true in all cases. I'm not, saying anything about all that. So yeah, I like that, Heather. That's a beautiful statement. Yeah, because the word addiction is very charged. That's right. You could ask, what's your relationship with alcohol like? Or what's your relationship with this like? Right, exactly. So now there is something, I think, to those words. I agree that like a lot of these charged words are typically not helpful, and we need to like find other words often, because the word itself can be so triggering that it just takes someone out and they lose that self-connection. At the same time, I know that for myself, when I did acknowledge that I had a sugar addiction, when I had a food addiction, there was something healing for me about acknowledging that this is a place where I actually don't experience self-control. And the word addiction was very helpful for me to put a label on it and say, actually, I'm not experiencing a lot of freedom in relation to sugary foods. And that was very healing for me. So I would say for some people, it might be a triggering word. For other people, it might be a healing word. And that's another case where you can connect about that, like with a person, like, hey, does this word feel like it is so aligned with your experience that giving it a powerful label, like a medical diagnosis or something, like finally it's like, oh, this makes sense. What's going on makes sense to me because I've finally admitted something to myself, then it could be healing. But if it's like, oh, well, now I'm afraid that people are going to judge me. They're going to label me. They're going to think of me as an addict. They're going to put me down. And that brings up a lot of fear and concern, and it makes things worse. Then the addiction word is not going to be very helpful, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So let's talk about, or let's do some practical examples. Let's work through some practical examples. And I'd love to also open it up to the group. If you have a practical example, then that would be awesome to kind of hear, what are you wanting to play with in this? Is there something that you feel that you are excited to explore? And is there something that you're wanting to work with? There's some common examples that come up in a lot of our lives. Work situations, family situations, relationship situations, friendship situations. There's all sorts of very common situations where this comes up. And we can practice with some of those, and we can do a little journaling too. And then about 20 minutes from now, 25 minutes from now, maybe, I'm intending to shift into doing a meditation together. So we'll shift into that. So we'll get a little bit of workshopping, and we'll do a little bit of meditation. And then maybe we'll have a little time for journaling at the end as well. Put it all together. A common scenario could be if you're in a partnership and your partner or you wants to make a very big purchase that would have an impact on the other person, or maybe their sense of trust, or maybe your own sense of trust, whatever it may be. That's a very common situation. So I'll start with some situations, and then feel free in the chat if you want to share anything, you can. But so if let's pretend that your partner is going to make a big purchase, and this is bringing up stuff inside of you because, one, maybe you're not even sure about whether the purchase is aligned. Maybe you're worried that they're being persuaded by marketers or whatever and all this stuff, and it brings up a lot of fear inside of you that this decision is being made from a place of deep groundedness in the other person. Maybe they have a history of financial challenges, and you're sensing that if they said yes to this, it would be a very high risk endeavor. And you're worried about that, right? So just as an example of what you could say, instead of saying something like, if you're married, it's different because then you might have shared finances, and then you might have a lot more say over something like this. And that's important to own, that if you're sharing resources, this may be an opportunity to come to more agreement around how you share those resources and what feels good around that. So anytime something comes up like this, it's an opportunity to generate more agreement, more harmony, more consensus, etc. So just shifting from strategy, immediately you feel inside like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. I don't want them to do this. I want to persuade them out of it. Okay, you notice that coming up. And then you shift to connection. You can say, I notice you go inward first. You start with where you are first. This is especially true with people pleasers and people that struggle with boundaries. I notice I'm having worries about this purchase. And you can say, like, I'm concerned and I'd really like to understand what your enthusiasm is around this and how you see this mitigating the risks, or anything that you might want to say. I'm just making stuff up here. Would you be willing to explore this with me and share a little bit more about what's going on for you so that I could understand where this excitement is coming from? Because if this is important to you, I would like to really understand it, and I would like to be able to support you. But right now, I just feel my fear coming up. So can we connect about it together? That sort of thing. just as an example. Let me read some comments here. Grace says, I experience confusion connecting with new people I meet who I'm interested in pursuing friendships with. Okay? I think maybe I focus on what connection feels like to me rather than also what it might feel like to them. Then what is the source of your confusion? Can you share a little bit more about that? So are you confused because you're telling yourself that I don't even know if I can empathize. I can send my imagination into it because I'm not sure. Can you tell me a little bit more about what the confusion is? What is the thought that you feel is confusing about it? Your second comment I'm sensing is maybe you're wanting to really trust that you're being inclusive, that you are engaging with them in a way that's going to be connecting for you and also the other person. So you're wanting mutuality, and maybe you're a little unsure around whether the way that you're connecting with the other person is working for them as well. I just don't get, how does that connect with the confusion? Maybe you can say a little bit more about that, if you're willing. While you're typing, I'll go into another situation. And if anyone has anything they want to talk about, feel free to throw it in the chat as well. So sometimes this is another situation that can happen. Our willingness to do something might be dependent on whether another person is doing something too, right? So our willingness to join a band might be related to how good the other musicians are, right? And if the other musicians are really skillful, then we'll be more inclined to join a band, right? So what that gets at in myself is it's a clear I statement that has nothing to do with another person. It's just, I want to be a part of something where our skill is enhancing each other and we can really kind of like jam together and enjoy and not be frustrated or interrupted by, not having the chops to play together or something. So it's just an example. We're going to explore that more in a moment of when something is conditional, but let's return to Grace's scenario. I have difficulty being able to tell if someone's also feeling a connection or just being polite. I see. Okay, great. That is common, especially when people are very nice and very polite. And so that, there is a deep yearning therefore to like connect. And this is something that you can ask them directly, or you can create a space to, like, you can create something that I'm thinking right now is you might want to explore ways that you relate to people that is maybe encouraging them to have a polite response versus an authentic response. So like, as I'm thinking my way through this in real time with you, I'm wondering if there is anything that you're doing that is eliciting a politeness response versus an authentic response. It might also be related to, are you showing up in that way with regard to others as well, and setting the stage for politeness being over and above authenticity. It might or it might not. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing ideas out there because some of this stuff has to do with communication and some of this stuff has to do with other things. So Anita asks, can that be a projection? Everything can be a projection. Most of the time we're projecting. Projecting is kind of the norm. Sure, probably. But I think that the important thing is, for anyone that relates to this, you might want to have like a series of statements in your pocket that you could pull out at any moment and be like, hey, I really appreciate your kindness and your politeness. And it's also really important to me to know whether or not this is like something you would joyfully and enthusiastically say yes to. So I'm curious, is it okay with you if you just kind of check in for a moment and let me know where you are around X, Y, and Z? That could be, you're going to want to find statements that can penetrate through the politeness and get at the heart of things. And you might want to like write them down and practice a bunch of statements like that. And just, that was like me saying it in my very, very philosophical language, but it could just be as simple as like, I really appreciate how kind you are. And I'm just curious if we drop into just being real with each other even more. Like, would you respond any differently, or would you do anything different? Or you can even say like, if you could have your ideal situation, what would you want in this situation? Forget me, forget everyone else, forget whatever. What would you want to do in this situation? So you can play that imagination game where you go into like, if there were no constrictions, no, nothing limiting you in any way, and you could just do whatever you wanted, what would you want? So you can play with expressions like that to help people connect with their own genuine willingness, because other people may not know either. Many of us may, unless someone else gives us permission to go into a place of really deep connection, sometimes we are moderating it. We're not necessarily firing all cylinders of 100% authenticity. So creating a space and like kind of having expressions like that invite more authentic responses to situations that you run into, that might be a great way. And you can just start practicing them. Just start practicing them whenever you notice that feeling arise. Then you can throw it out there and you can just try one out and say, okay. So is that helpful? In addition to, I think, the bigger spiritual point of, I would definitely check in to see if you're being overly polite in those situations as well. Because if you're worried about it in others, you might be leading with that yourself. And then that could be setting up the way that you relate to the other person as well, without you necessarily knowing it. So part of the practice might be going inward and living in more alignment yourself instead of from politeness and kindness as well. How does that sound? Any feedback from me? Does that resonate or is that off? What do you think? Interesting response. Grace says, I think I need to be okay with people being uncomfortable. That's sure. Oh, you mean if you're being real with them? I was thinking for a moment that you meant asking them to like cut through the politeness, which I thought would be like, that would even make them more comfortable probably, because they could drop into some deeper authenticity. But you mean inside of yourself. Yeah. I think the key insight there might be something around, let me know if this lands for you, but maybe it's something around like, okay, here's another thing that came up around that. I wonder if it's really, other people being uncomfortable. Sure. But are you uncomfortable when other people are uncomfortable? Because I think the thing there is like, it might, this is the same kind of pattern, is, are you comfortable with your own discomfort around people when they're uncomfortable? So typically I feel like it's your fault. Well, I don't like a language of fault. You like being uncomfortable. I'm not a huge fan of language of fault because it's related to language of blame. And everything in existence is always multiple things interacting with each other in multiple ways. And it's very rare that one person is to blame for anything that is a complex system of humans interacting. Sometimes it is. But I think much more often, like 98% of the time, it's always a little bit of both, and there's always this intermix. The reason why I'm focusing on you is not because it's your fault. That's not the reason why we're focusing on you. The only reason why we're focusing on you is because that's the only thing you have control over. It's the only thing you have agency around, and it's the only thing that you can source your power in, that you can make a difference with. It's how you're showing up. So I'm always trying to find what are the places where that person themselves has the agency or has the control, and then it's going to help you just let other people be where they are. So it's not, maybe a little subconscious belief came up there of like, maybe it's my fault, and then you're blaming yourself. So that's good. You can bring some love and some compassion to that. Noticing a harsh voice, a harsh voice in there. It's something is my fault. Just bringing some compassion and self-love to yourself in that moment. And realizing that it's not really about fault. It's not about blame. It's about just noticing where you can source your actions and something you have control over. It's about agency. It's about being responsible to yourself. And if there were others in the situation that you feel that you need to forgive yourself, or you need some of your own name, you need some grace for yourself, giving yourself some grace, allowing in a little grace for yourself to be human and maybe make some mistakes, and maybe other people were hurt. That's okay. That happens. You're human. It's fine. You may want to, anyone who is feeling this, you may want to listen to the desert. I'll just say it right now because this really dovetails with this. This desert yoga nidra and reconnecting to your true self thing here is very much connected to this. What we're talking about right now, working with Grace. And thank you, Grace, for sharing yourself and for showing up in this way. It takes a lot of courage to share these things that you're sharing, and a lot of vulnerability. So I really appreciate that. You can check out this desert yoga nidra here because it's all about basically going into a space. The desert for me is a potent landscape of letting go of all of the external influences that might make us lose connection to ourselves in a particular moment. So it was actually used that way by a lot of monastics throughout history, right? They would actually go to the desert as a rite of passage. You know, they would go to the desert for cleansing. They would go to the desert and receive wisdom, so the desert literally was used this way. And I thought it was just a very profound visualization to actually go in this visualization through the desert as a way to let go of any of the noise of things. You can actually reconnect with yourself again, see where you are, what's true for you, and then go from that place. But in the meditation, it's a long meditation. It's like 50 minutes long. But as you get to the end of the meditation, it starts to have to do a lot with self-forgiveness and grace and accepting the fact that we're imperfect and it's okay, because it's very often the case that we withhold our gifts and we withhold something that is beautiful that we want to give to the world. We will withhold that out of some kind of self-judgment or self-blame, and not letting ourselves experience the okayness of making a mistake, not just allowing in a sense of forgiveness for ourselves for causing harm in particular situations. And we have to realize that we have inadvertently caused harm, other people have inadvertently caused harm to us. And when we understand this, that this is just a thing that happens and it's okay, we're not excusing the behaviors, we're not excusing the things, we're just noticing that this is a thing that happens in life despite everyone's best efforts. And this can allow us to forgive those people that have potentially stimulated a lot of pain inside of us, right? Our parents were imperfect. Their parents were imperfect. Their parents were imperfect. And all this ancestral intergenerational stuff gets passed down, but everyone's trying their best and everyone vows to never make the mistakes that their parents made. And then they make a new set of mistakes, right? So it's part of this embracing imperfection, embracing the beauty of the mess a little bit, and recognizing that it's okay, that you have resilience inside of you, that you can put the pieces back together again and heal, and you can actually grow stronger sometimes because of the mistakes, and you can learn more because of the mistakes, that you can begin to open up to a new level of forgiveness, both in yourself and for others that might have contributed to harm or pain inside of you. So it goes both ways with this. It's not just self-forgiveness, is that as you forgive yourself, you'll feel it is much more available to you to forgive others as well that have caused pain for you. So does that make sense? Let me know if anyone has any questions or any comments. And in a few minutes, we'll get started with the guided meditation. So I'm just putting the meditation background up here so that we can start to get into the mood of the meditation. You can start to set up your space nearby, but I would love to hear how that was for folks. If anyone has any comments or questions or revisions or objections, I would love to hear it. And then we'll get into a meditation. And if people are feeling in flow, then I will assume everyone's cool. I know that a lot of you are on your phones, so it's harder to type. You really feel that? Okay, great, Grace. I'm glad to hear that it resonated. All right. So let's begin to prepare our space for a meditation. You can begin to, if you want to dim the lights, or you want to get a cozy little blanket, or you want to get some pillows, or you want to lay down, whatever is going to be a fit. Grace is sharing appreciation. Thank you, Grace. Yeah, this is such an incredibly supportive space. It's really such a blessing to be here with you all. And thank you for showing up on a Saturday. Well, it's a Saturday where I am. Maybe it's Sunday for you, depending on where you are in the world. But thank you for showing up here and just taking the time to explore this work, exploring getting to know yourself better, exploring the possibility of contributing from a place of deep willingness and joy and connection and mutual harmony. And just giving yourself that space and time to grow and learn and honor the beauty of your humanity. All right. So let's begin to settle into our space. If you're sitting down, you can begin to adjust your posture so that your spine is straight and that the weight is grounded in the feet and the bottom of your seat. You can put your arms where they're comfortable. You can kind of play around with your position and see if you want to have the hands face upward or downward or to the sides. Finding just the right angle where you feel at ease. You can begin to move your shoulders back and forward, just finding the place where they feel just right. And give yourself a few deep breaths as you fill the lungs, expanding the belly, and then exhale gently through the mouth, noticing tension drifting away as you come into deeper self-presence. Feel the gentle caress of the breath going in the nostrils. Notice the temperature. Is it warm? Is it cool? Experience it as a gentle touch, a relaxing, caring touch of air. And on the exhale, let yourself just release and sink more deeply into the present. As you notice any thoughts, just let them float. And acknowledge yourself for the self-care and self-connection that you're allowing in. And allow a gentle wave of relaxation to descend from the head into the rest of the body, beginning at the crown of the head, letting this wave release any tension in the scalp and the forehead and around the eyes, moving down to your cheeks and jaw, letting them all loosen and relax. Feeling this wave continue down slowly through the neck and the shoulders. Sense any heaviness or tightness in your arms or hands and let it dissolve as this wave of ease and peace continues to move through the body. Let your hips and legs and feet relax next. Noticing any sensations in the lower limbs, maybe moving a little bit so you're 5 or 10% more comfortable. And letting the whole body relax. With each deep breath, your body becomes a bit more tranquil, a bit more receptive to your inner truth. Setting an intention now to get to know yourself better, to connect with what's truly alive for you, making space for anything that is to show itself, welcoming whatever wants to be known by you, so that you can receive more care and more love in precisely the places inside that want it most. Now begin to imagine a landscape that feels peaceful or uplifting to you. Perhaps it's a place you visited, a quiet beach at sunrise, a shady forest path, a rolling meadow of wildflowers. Or maybe it's someplace you've dreamed of, an otherworldly garden, a secluded mountain clearing, or a softly lit grove under star-strewn skies. Allow the details of this place to become more vivid with each breath, feeling it welcome you, feeling at home. Notice the shape of the land. Are there gentle hills, towering trees, shimmering water? Feel the texture of the ground beneath you as you engage your senses in a slow and curious way in the landscape around you. Observe the quality of light in this place. Is it morning or dusk? What colors do you see in the sky? Open your listening to this inner landscape. Perhaps you hear a distant bird call, or the whisper of leaves, or the lapping of water. Let any of these sounds soothe you. And as you breathe in, inhale the essence of this place into your body. Is there a fresh scent in the land? A scent of pine or a salty sea breeze or a fragrance of flowers? And if there are any thoughts that are arising, just let them float as you let go of any thoughts. You begin to see a gentle path or a natural feature inviting you to explore it further. You notice perhaps a winding trail. And as you follow this trail, let your mind call forth a memory from your life when you felt truly in harmony with who you were. An instance where you acted with clarity, resilience, and integrity. Bring yourself into that memory as though you're stepping into it anew with the wisdom that you have now. Notice the setting. Sense the mood of the moment. How did it feel to be there? What quality does this memory hold for you? Is it a sense of kindness? Is it creativity? Honesty? Perseverance? Compassion? Is it a sense of being seen or appreciated for who you are? Did you have a heightened sense of purpose or meaning or significance? Or were you contributing really profoundly? Connect with the underlying energy that makes this memory and this time so satisfying. And as you breathe in, soak in the essence of this value. You might imagine it as a gentle warmth or a certain color or light. And affirm that this is within you. This is something in you that met the world And you're coming into deeper contact with this piece of truth inside of yourself. Just allowing yourself to further appreciate the resonance of this cherished aspect of life as it lives inside of you. Continue breathing slowly, allowing the energy of this core value to grow more and more palpable, as though it had a tangible presence in the air around you. If it feels natural, you might sense it as a comforting warmth spreading through your chest or brightening the space around you. It's light, filling you up, resonating with you, and helping you express something deep within you. If it has a form, you can connect with what color or shape it has. But if no form is arising, you can simply connect with its underlying energy and its feeling sense inside of your body. Trust that your deeper self communicates in ways that feel just right for you. And just allow yourself to be with this energy, letting this part of yourself be seen and honored. Now carry this energy within as you look back to the path. And you gently and slowly return back to the center of your peaceful landscape. You take a moment to look around. You notice any new features or qualities that may have appeared different in the context of this new light as you connected with this core value. And you look over to the side and notice another path. And you feel a desire to walk down this path. You notice that the air feels different. It feels charged with a hint of possibility. Almost like you're entering into a higher and more integrated and more beautiful sense of energy than you've previously known. You keep your breath steady and deep as you breathe in a sense of curiosity, as you explore this heightened sense of connection. You arrive at an open clearing. And as you're in this space, you start noticing around you is forming a circle of light. And you sense in this circle of light an ancient energy, elders, mentors, books, movies, so many of the things that you've loved, so many of the things that you've been drawn to. Poetry, literature, the things that moved you, the things that touched you in your life. You sense their energy in this circle of light around you. It's as if this circle of light is composed with the energy of elders and mentors that are looking for a place to bestow a gift. And they see you. And they feel like they have found someone with precisely the right talents and skills and sensitivities, precisely the right priorities and values and needs, precisely the right gifts. And they feel a sense of awe at this particular combination of all of these things coming together in you. How is it possible that all these things came together in just the right form in you? That the things you need and the things you value and the things you're here to give all make a perfect shape for something that you are here to give. And you begin to wonder if when you were young, something like this happened. If when you were born, it's as if there were a bunch of elders and mentors and ancestors that gave you gifts, gave you sensitivities, gave you things that you cared about. And you feel yourself receiving this gift, receiving this bestowal of trust in you to be yourself. No other request from this loving light than simply to allow you to be yourself. No request other than for you to learn in your own time to trust yourself. No request from this loving light for you to discover through the challenges and the mistakes and the missteps how to walk more beautifully in alignment with your goals and your values and your gifts, so that ultimately they are ultimately expressive of you. You feel their light coming into you, acknowledging you, nourishing you, expanding you. And you begin to wonder. You look back on your life and see all the ways that these gifts and these values have been expressing themselves in the hard times and the easy times, in the challenges and the vacations. These gifts have been with you, these sensitivities have been with you your whole life. And you're beginning to see the bigger picture of your life coming together as a story of the expression of the unfolding of these needs and values and gifts. You breathe this in whatever way feels comfortable. You take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, you imagine this radiant energy of your gift gently extending beyond your body. You see it like a light, touching different aspects of your everyday life. You picture a typical day, interactions with friends or family, moments of solitude, the times when you work on creative projects, or how you encounter challenges. You begin to see this day through the lens of an opportunity to express your core gifts even more. You begin to see opportunities to focus on self-connection before moving to strategy. You see opportunities to pause and communicate what's actually true for you, so that these gifts and values can express themselves more fully in your life. And feel the energy of the space and this imagination just come fully into your body. As your attention begins to rest on the physical sensations around you as you come back into the room, come back into the physical space. Feel the ground that you're resting on. Feel the air on your cheeks. Feel the physicalness of the body. You can begin to move slowly if you want to move the wrists, the arms, maybe taking a little stretch as you take a deep breath in. Gently moving the legs and the ankles, maybe stretching by pulling a knee to the chest, the other knee, or twisting and turning to gently wake the body up. And give yourself a few more deep breaths in appreciation for the depth of this inward journey. Recognize that the landscapes, the energies, the imagery, and the supportive presences you experienced are reflections of what is already inside of you. And any insights that have come into your mind and heart are like an open door that you can walk through whenever you need to. And whenever you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes, soften your gaze, letting your surroundings come back into focus. And before moving quickly, unless you want to write down anything that came to mind, if you can sit quietly for another minute or two, just acknowledging any emotional shifts or sensations in the body. Maybe placing a hand on the heart. Taking a few deep breaths. And just resting in the fullness of this experience. You can also hold your hands out as if you're allowing your gifts to express themselves through your hands out into the world. Just relaxing here for a few moments, feeling at ease, feeling peaceful. body now. Just relax. We're going to move into a journaling and reflection process. So keeping a similar state of mind and heart, you can pull out a journal of some kind, an audio journal or a physical journal or a document on your computer, whichever you like. And just write down, we'll start with what images or scenes felt most vivid to you. Images or scenes or impressions felt most vivid to you. Were there any emotions that came up that you might want to write down as well? Comfort, gratitude, surprise. And what values did you connect to? And what did it feel like to receive or recognize this value? What was the talent or skill or perspective that emerged? Are there any places of your life where you already see traces of this gift in action? Where you might easily recognize the expression of your gift? And as you imagine what the gift might be requesting of you, are there any habits or beliefs or fears that the gift is encouraging you to release? Does it invite you to practice something new or deepen an existing passion? And lastly, are there any simple steps you can take today or in the coming days to embody the insights that you received from this experience? May these discoveries continue to support you and guide you as you move through your coming days and inspire you with a sense of purpose, meaning, calm, and genuine connection to your gifts and what matters most to you. When you're feeling ready, feel free to share how that was in the chat. I'd love to hear how that was and anything that you want to share that came up from that experience. So glad I can clear my throat. I've had something in my throat for like 15 minutes. All right. So that was a new one, kind of a mix of a script and a spontaneous thing. So would love to hear how that was and what worked really well. Was there any part that you felt particularly connected to? Is there anything that you would want to shift about it, or where you got taken out of the meditation temporarily, either because the meditation wasn't a fit or because of something internal that came up? I'd love to hear it all. Thank you for all the hearts. I see a lot of hearts. I appreciate that. That's very sweet. Thank you. I'm imagining that people might be continuing to write down stuff from the experience too. That might be happening. You don't have to share either, of course. But if anyone does want to share, I'm sure you're typing, and I know there's a delay when I ask things. Oh, interesting. Listened while walking. That's very fascinating. This worked well as a walking meditation and reflecting. That's cool. Were you able to visualize this stuff, or were you kind of like visualizing it in real time? Like augmented reality or something? Like it was over the reality that was around you? Or did you close your eyes for portions of it? I'm curious what that was like. That sounds very interesting. sort of like daydreaming. It's a backcountry road, so not much for distraction. Very cool. That is very cool. Interestingly, I don't usually do visualization meditations as much as I do body scans, or the body scans that I do have a lot of visualization in them at the end, but there's typically a long body scan first. But I'm playing with more visualization based meditations that are more symbolic, because I did one the other day and it was very powerful for me. And so it's really a form that I have not played enough with, I think. So I'm just experimenting and trying some stuff out as I go. Feel free also, if anyone has any questions about the material that we went over in the beginning, this is also a great time to ask. If no one has any questions or anything, we can end a little early. But I am curious if there is anything anyone wants to share. Feel free to. Otherwise, we can close up. We can close up a little early. I'll tell you a little bit about what's coming up, what I'm working on, and upcoming events. But if anyone else has anything they want to share, a debrief from their experience, that would be lovely for me to hear. How do you think about Joe Dispenza's meditation? I don't get why it's so popular. I'm not too familiar with Joe, because I think he goes off a little bit in the direction of like maybe like new age metaphysics stuff, which is that's not my cup of tea. That's not my offering. So I have tried to remain very deeply secular and scientific in my assumptions, and remain firmly within a naturalistic worldview that doesn't assume that there's any other thing going on, any other layers of reality than what's here. It doesn't mean that there isn't. It just means that I'm not assuming that. And I think a lot of other people in the spiritual space, especially in the new age space, they're very comfortable, or they just maybe they haven't really thought about it rigorously, but they're much more willing to assume the existence of things that are not visible or whatever, that are pre-scientific or anti-scientific, and that's not my cup of tea. So I think Joe has done that a bit in the domain of like his interpretation of quantum mechanics. I think this is extremely common. This is like, those of you that know me for a while know that this is like a thing of mine, and I'm probably going to do a course on it at some point. That's like, here's really what quantum mechanics is saying. It's a little bit different than what the spiritual interpretations of it are, but it's a very deep personal value of mine to stay grounded in science and secular reality. So that's my particular offering. But I do think that there is a lot of benefit to the new age approach, or believing in beings of light and all these other things. Like, I think there's a lot of interesting benefits to playing with that imagination. In my opinion, it's just imagination that has forgotten that it was imagination, and then it takes itself literally. So for me, a lot of those things are just, they're not showing us the nature of reality. They're showing us the power of the imagination. So that's my interpretation of it. And, you're free to, have your own beliefs. You don't have to agree with me, but I just want to be clear about like where I am about those things, because that's part of my expression of my own gifts. Is I'm only going to share what I genuinely believe and what I think is profoundly missing from the spiritual community, which is my scientific and secular take on things. So that's my sense of it, is that there's a huge demand for meditations that are based on powerful imagining creative visualizations, and they do get people places, right? They do help people self-connect. They do, you don't have to have an accurate view of quantum particles to be empowered. You know what I mean? Like, that's just a weird quirk that I have, that I happen to care about that because I want to. It's part of my spiritual practice to engage with reality in the beauty that it is, rather than me imposing my ideas on reality. For me, that's what spirituality means. I don't want to impose my beliefs onto reality. I want to understand the mystery of this existence. I want to become more intimate and deeply connected to what is and to what is real. So it's deeply a part of my spiritual practice to actually understand the way things are, the way that they are, to be in a pursuit of that at least. So anything that goes off is not my path. It's not my thing. It's not going to be my offering. But there's plenty of benefits that you could receive psychologically from exploring those things. And, if you believe that, water it has memory or something, that's fine. You can believe whatever you want, so it's like, for some people that they want to live in that mythopoetic reality, and they're very comfortable with that, and they don't necessarily have a deep desire to understand reality from a scientific perspective, then I think that's the majority of people. I think I'm more like the exception. And I think a lot of people are much more comfortable with that stuff than I am. So that's why it's so popular, because it works, because we're wired for story. We're wired for the imagination. We're wired for, the symbolic, and very often when a symbol becomes very potent, we forget that it's a symbol and we take it literally. And I call that spiritual literalism. And spiritual literalism is essentially when we forget that metaphors are symbols, or metaphors and symbols, and we take them as literally real things. And since we don't see them anywhere, we have to put them in a supernatural reality. So that's my theory for what's happening. But you don't have to believe that. You don't have to agree with that. But I'm going to always be, my commitment to you is that I will always be honest and compassionate in how I express my divergence from other people's beliefs, as well as sharing what I believe about something. So that's just been a personal commitment for me in the last few years, that I realized that if I'm going to offer my work to the world, I have to be able to be honest about it and what I believe. And I think that people that keep coming back to my work are going to potentially resonate with that. So I think very few people try to walk that line of like compassionate understanding of where it comes from, but also being clear about whether they believe it or not, So yeah, so like if someone believes in God, like that's fine. I don't believe in any traditional image or notion of God. I have a very complex substitute belief that is more akin to some kind of nature of mystery. It's like some kind of mystery. I don't want to give it a name, but it's something like mystery. It has to do with complexity and emergence and time and all these other things. That's my kind of replacement for the placeholder of like, I don't know, because I don't know. And I don't think anyone does. So that's my belief about it. But people are totally entitled, and I have many friends who have beliefs that are wildly divergent from my own. And I think that those things are very personal and they're very unique to the person, and they're doing a lot inside of their psychology and in their upbringing and in their ancestry. And there's a lot, there's a lot going on there. So the fact that I happened to grow up the way that I did, meant that I didn't have any deep attachment to any religious tradition. So I didn't try to map on spirituality to that tradition or whatnot. So I think people that grow up with a very strong family tradition and a certain belief system, it can be harder to extricate yourself from that without alienating yourself from family. So I think in those contexts, people will sometimes choose to reinterpret the teachings of that religion in a way that resonates with them, rather than throwing it away wholesale. So rather than saying, well, no, I don't really believe in, that God is like a bearded dude in the sky, or that God is like Zeus that can throw lightning bolts. Like I know I don't believe in that kind of God, but maybe I believe in a different kind of God. I'm going to make it make sense to me and my system, right? So we all do that with our spiritual practice, and that's part of what makes it beautiful to be human together, is just the diversity of all the different ways that we can be human, right? And that's a part of truth. So I want to honor that and accept that, and while also being clear about where I am. And I hope that in doing that we could actually live in a world where people can actually have diverse perspectives, and that's okay. I think this is a really important skill and muscle to develop, is actually a tolerance for like, okay, this person believes something that I think is really wild, but that's okay. I still love them. They're cool. They're my friend. We can hang out and have dinner together. This is like a very underappreciated skill set, I believe, in today's world. So, but that's the world that I want to live in. So that's the world that that's how I want to be. So what that entails is that I am committed to being honest with you, while at the same time not letting it get in the way of friendship and kindness and compassion, and honoring where that your perspective might be totally different from mine. So thank you, Joyce, for your generous donation. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share? Anything else that they want to say? Anything else that they want to ask? For those of you that are watching me on YouTube right now, I don't have my insight timer display here, but I'm starting to broadcast on YouTube, and there's like 2 people on YouTube that came. There's like 104 that are in insight timer. So for those of you that are on YouTube, there's actually 104 people that have come and checked this out. So just letting you know, there's a couple of people that just arrived. We're actually closing up soon, but Jackie says, thank you for expanding my thinking. You're welcome. Thank you for sharing. It's very beautiful. Was there a particular insight or a particular... this is my question to everyone right now. This is great feedback from me around what stood out to you and what people received. So I kind of know what to focus on and what to emphasize. Is what did stand out to you? What was insightful, both from the workshop portion that we did in the beginning to the meditation? Was there anything that you felt a shift in? Was there any particular takeaway or concept or distinction that you felt was very helpful for you? Was there something about the way I was being that made an impression on you? All these things are like very helpful for me, sitting in my room here, wanting to connect with what I just gave, and how did that land for you? That's a big part of the joy for me, is hearing how it was for you. All right, well, I'm sure people are typing, but I will begin to close here by sharing some stuff that's coming up next and some of these featured meditations. So these are some of the meditations that I just posted recently that are... I think Insight Timer must have changed its algorithm, because I have like 1,020 subscribers and like almost no one is listening to these things. I don't know if all of the subscribers are getting notifications about this, but or they're just like not interesting to some of my subscribers. Perhaps some of my other things have like thousands and thousands of listens. So I don't really understand their algorithm. YouTube's algorithm is a lot more trend. I have like a lot better of an idea of what YouTube is doing. I'm totally confused about how Insight Timer promotes things, but these are some of the ones that I've done relatively recently. So I want to tell you a little bit about them. This all day reboot here is a short 15-minute body scan meditation designed to be done in the middle of the day. So in the morning, and basically anytime besides at night. And it's quick. It's very restorative. I actually did it before I came onto the session today. And Jen says, I'm finding notifications are later than usual. Lives I've been getting the day before. Interesting. That would make a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. So they don't necessarily put it up when I start the event. That's very interesting. Well, that also encourages me to show you my website, which has, you can actually go there and see where the events are. I'll give you a little tour of that as we go through, but I want to tell you about some of these new meditations first. So the all day reboot, quick yoga nidra body scan meditation, and helps you kind of get back into the scheme of things and into the flow of things that you're doing. So that is basically what's going on with that one. Just don't do that one at night. Then there's this reconnect with your true self, yoga nidra, the desert. And like I said before, this is a very powerful, profound yoga nidra that it is related to the theme of today of connecting with your core values and core gifts and core needs, except it does this through the lens of a kind of sacred desert environment. And I need to put that there. There's like a sacred desert environment where it's dropping all the distractions and everything away so that you can actually just connect with yourself in a state of solitude. And we go into the ecosystems of the desert, and there's a lot of nature imagery, and you learn a lot about some cool things about how deserts work. I always try to put real biology and real ecology and real geology and real meteorology and all the science things into the meditation as well. So not only are you learning about yourself, but you're also learning about nature. So I have a whole series planned where we're going to go through every single landscape on the planet Earth, like a David Attenborough kind of thing, except they're all going to be body scans and yoga nidras that spiritually and metaphorically take what's symbolically or metaphorically powerful about that landscape and then turns that into a spiritual journey in a yoga nidra. So that's going to take me like years to do this, but I'm doing them, and I'm in the process, and I'm recording like one a week, and I'm publishing them here and on YouTube. So I'm super excited about doing this. I think it's going to be awesome. So this is that. The first one I did was like a year ago, which is the deep rest body scan, which is a forest visualization. On YouTube, that got like 1,500 hits in like 2 weeks, and a lot of people liked it. So that there was something that people like about that one. I don't know if it's the forest or what I said in that one, but I'm very happy with that one. That's also a plus recording that's really, I'm very happy with. Then there's this music that it's been out for like a month and 7 people have listened to it. It's this Drifting into Sleep. It's an hour of music to relax. So it's just this short repeating piece of music that it's just designed to help kind of distract the mind and help you kind of peacefully fall asleep. So would love to see what people thought of that one. And then the free ones that I posted recently are this Earth and Gratitude. I'm also going to be publishing a gratitude series. This is also going to be on YouTube, and I'm going to do like a 20-something hour live stream of it. I'm really excited about this, but I'm not going to be doing it live. I'm going to pre-record it and then sequence it so it's going 24/7 of gratitude. Just like I don't want to do this like 24/7 like grounded affirmations, 24/7 gratitude, and like the next live I'm doing. If you want to get a feeling for the live that's coming next, You can listen to this gratitude. This is very short. This is only 6 minutes. But what we're going to practice is what I call deep gratitude, which is based on my secular and scientific reinterpretation of Martin Prechtel's teachings. And in their culture, they have this idea that they have this idea that you actually need to feed that the earth, that the sun, that all these beings, they are beings that need to be fed with your praise and creativity and recognition and remembrance. So when we forget, their idea is that when we forget these things, they start to die, which is a really interesting and profound spiritual teaching. It does psychologically turn out to be the case that when we forget things, we take them for granted. And when we take them for granted, we abuse them. And when we abuse them, they start to deteriorate. So there is actually like a literal truth to that I find fascinating, that when we forget things, they tend to wither, right? Same thing with friendships, same thing with anything, right? So that tends to be the case. It's not universally true, but it tends to be the case. And so they've got this idea in this culture. So what they do is they literally have these deep, eloquent speeches that they give as offerings to what they consider divinities in nature. The trees, they're divinities, they're gods, they're goddesses, all these things. And they feed them with eloquent words of remembrance for who they are and what they are. Now that's the indigenous version of that. I am not an indigenous person. I don't align with that mythopoetic understanding of reality. I can't authentically do that. If I did that, it would be an act. It wouldn't be authentic and it wouldn't be real for me. But I love so much of that. So I've tried to adapt it to something I do believe, to something I do feel wholeheartedly behind. And I'm creating these gratitudes as a form of that. So in this one is about the soil, a practice thanks to the living land. It's really about different soils. I have another, it's a small part of a longer thing that I've already recorded about the plants and the earthworms and other things in the soil. So there's a longer thing. I just didn't know how this was going to do. So I figured I'd publish a short one first before the other ones. But this is basically taking that practice. And then for me, my road to it is through poetry, Heidegger, actually, some philosophers, but remembering the face of things before their usefulness to us. So what I mean by that is, like, before this computer was a computer, it was a bunch of rocks. It was a bunch of crystals. It was a bunch of metals in the earth that was mined and combined and shaped and etched to make what it is, right? The silicon that is in these chips is likely created from beaches, and the quartz in beaches, there is quartz on beaches because it's one of the hardest minerals on the planet. It's one of the few things that doesn't erode from the water and the wind. So for me, this process of remembering the origins of things materially, which Martine also teaches, is a really important part of remembering and being truly grateful for this computer that's here. It's not just that it allows me to talk to you. I'm grateful for all the uses it has. But deep gratitude is about going beyond the useful thing, the usefulness of things for us, and trying to find their original face as processes in the earth, as living beings, as all of that, so we can respect and honor and remember the earth itself and the living energy of things themselves and the process of things in themselves. So that's part of my life mission, is to do this and to put this out into the world. And you get a little taste of it in this meditation, but also this is what, in 2 weeks, when I do my next live event, this is what the event is going to be about. And I'm going to be recording a live gratitude during that as well. We'll do one. I'm going to do one together there with you, so you'll have early access to that in 2 weeks if you decide to come. So that's it. We're at time here. So that's all that I wanted to share. And if you do have any feedback from me, you want to send me a personal message, that's fine too. I'd love to hear that. I hope you have a beautiful, blessed day, and I hope that you can use what happens in your day as an opportunity to prioritize connection over strategy. And that anytime there's a request being made of you, or anytime you're making a request of yourself, that if you sense that you're saying yes without meaning it, or you sense that your no is coming from a rebellion or resentment, that you give yourself a moment to just check in. Maybe it's a moment, maybe it's an hour, maybe it's a day, whatever you need to sleep on the decision so you can prioritize connecting to your true willingness and your deeper truth, so that your decision and your yes can come out of genuine, true willingness instead of from a place of politeness or feeling like you have to do something or an inner demand. My blessing and my hope is that anytime those events happen in your life, because they will, we're all human, whenever they come up, that you can bring compassion to yourself and you can use it as an opportunity to grow and try something different, trying to focus on connection instead of rushing to strategy and people pleasing or overriding boundaries. And if you sense this in others as well, if you sense that they may be saying yes and they don't mean it, that you can actually also look at those as opportunities to carve out a space to help them self-connect to the best of their ability. And you can support them in their journey while also remaining true to, like, maybe you don't sense that this person is sufficiently self-connected to tell you the truth. Maybe they're going to lie. Maybe they're going to be polite. That's okay. That's just where they are. That's their journey. You're going to respond the way that you need to respond in alignment with your values, and you're going to let others just be how they are. And that typically allows the most care and the most compassion to flow. So blessings, everyone. Hope you have a beautiful couple of weeks. I look forward to reading your comments on the meditations and seeing how they go for you. And I will see you then. Take care, everyone. If you're not following me yet, feel free to follow, and you'll hopefully be notified when I put new things out. All right. Blessings, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next time.